Okay, we're back in the room now. We're okay now. We're recording.
Sorry, the internet went.
That's no worries.
Yeah, okay, fine. So apologies, the internet. The power went on mine. Yeah. But yeah, what I was saying was, when I turned my back, the courtroom was empty when I went in there, and I didn't realise about 30 people come into the courtroom.
Yeah.
And they were in the gallery, and they were there to confront the judge that I was pleading to about an injunction matter. I managed to get the injunction that I wanted. This is a High Court, applications court. Yeah. Now, anyway, so when I turn my back, I see all these people there, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what's all this about? And I got talking to these people, and activists is probably not the right word, people who have a grievance with the court.
You mean they are issuists, if that's such a word? They have an issue list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine. And I wouldn't know how to describe them. Mm-hmm. But they basically were there on this Monday that I was there protesting against family law, which is a complex and also can be extremely difficult in legal land, and is extremely difficult in legal land, if I'm perfectly honest.
Oh, God, yeah.
But I got chatting to some of the people there and got a gauge of what they were about, and I said, look, what are you? I said, what are you here for? And they explained what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
And I said, you can't do what you're trying to do. It just ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
And we got chatting anyway. I almost was as good as an usher that day.
Really?
Because I convinced them inadvertently, without any malice or intent, to discontinue what their intentions were, because they didn't have any idea in terms of how the legal land will operate. But anyway, one lady who was very composed but completely distressed approached me and said, look, I've come here to get my children back.
Yeah.
And getting children back is not my expertise, I'll be perfectly honest. It's not something I get in. Family court, I'm there quite a lot. I try and stay away from it, not least because I find it distressing myself. And they say ignorance of bliss, but when you're in that realm, ignorance is a lot blisser than being in that system.
Of course.
There's been a couple of court cases in family law which I've dealt with, which I've ended up in tears, if I'm perfectly honest. But they've been successes.
Yeah.
They've definitely, all the family cases I've dealt with have been successes.
Yeah.
But, it's relief tears, to be honest.
Yeah.
The emotion is very, is huge, absolutely huge.
Mm-hmm.
Being a parent myself. But anyway, so she approached me, and I ended up agreeing to take on an assist in her case, which is ongoing at the moment. On the back of that, basically, and that's in the High Court as well.
Yeah.
At the moment. But what I was trying to say, I suppose the point I was trying to make was that it is all these sort of situations and that I end up in, around every corner you turn, there's more and more people with anguish and grievances that ought to be rectified.
Yeah.
And equally, that group of people which I met at court that day, some of them, to be honest, were telling me the most absurd opinions.
Yeah.
Which are just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And people rely on these people for these absurd opinions. Well, I try not to give opinions, to be fair. So actually, on that point, just so people are very aware, is that I'm not legally qualified to give opinions.
Yeah.
I can give my personal opinion, but not in law. I can't. Because I could end up in prison.
Yeah.
But what the point I was making is that is that anybody, I suppose, can enter court and progress as they see fit, I suppose. And on that day, I did what I set out to do. It was hard, I'll be perfectly honest. And then I end up taking on another case, again, which is unpaid. And out of the group of people, I mean, there's probably about 6 or 7 that approached me. And I just sought out this lady who come across very well, and I thought she had a good case that, quite possibly I could assist. But Dean, you could walk the streets quite easily around the High Court, and you say, "But I'm a barrister. I'm willing to work for free," for example. You would be absolutely entranced with people wanting to get your assistance.
Oh God, yeah.
I don't do either of that. I'm actually physically, and people just contact me, and I try to assist where I can. Most of the time, to be fair, I try to assist in a passive manner, as in not in the courtroom. I try to give them guidance. The reason being is because, whilst my life, I'm not going to say shit, but it's not great in terms of hours and life enjoyment. I mean, maybe 5 years ago, I was on holiday quite a lot.
Yeah.
I was in America. I was doing all the leisurely stuff in life. Nowadays, I seem to be surrounded by cases which are extremely fucking depressive.
Distressing.
Some of the stuff I get told through these people, it's shocking. It's people. It's just the side of society that I don't, I've never really associated with.
Yeah.
But basically, the empathy I have for these people is just. I want to take on all the cases, but it's impossible.
Exactly, Brad.
It's just impossible.
Exactly, and it's a bit of a burden, isn't it? It's a burden to carry. You want to help these people, but
yeah, it is.
It's tough. I mean, sort of, as an aside, what we spoke about earlier, my experience in court is when I've seen these activist types turn up. Again, I'm probably going to get slaughtered from what I'm about to say, but I have mentioned earlier that we are very visual creatures. And 70% of any conversation, as I mentioned, 70-80% is body language, and we do tend to sum people up when we see them. I would say to people, comb your hair, wear a suit, look the part. Do you agree, Brad? You see people turn up in court.
No, to be honest, if you're a living in person, yes. If you're someone like me, no, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen people turn up in greasy t-shirts and tracksuit bottoms and try to argue their case. And you've said yourself,
criminal. If you're charged with a criminal offence, Dean, I'll be perfectly honest. Yeah, you're right. Look the part. Get yourself dressed up as if you're showing respect to the court, because ultimately they're the one that's going to decide your future, albeit may be short term. But equally, you dress up too smart, they're going to think you've got lots of money.
Yes, exactly. But I've seen people and groups of people enter into court that basically look like Swampy's mum and dad. I don't know if you remember Swampy, the guy that used to protest up trees to stop, perfectly valid to stop ancient woods being cut down, But, when you're in there and you're in front of these people, at the end of the day, Brad, I think us as a group, we've got to be practical. And we've got to apply practical applications to the situation we're in. When you're going to court, you're either defending a position or you're asking for something. And as you've said to me before in numerous conversations, a lot of it is they judge who's in front of them there and then. And if you're being judged at how you look, surely if you look presentable and you look like, someone who you know what I'm saying, Brad. I've observed people turn up the court in not, just wouldn't even turn up to anyway. It's one of my little things. You've got to look.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand. I understand the theme that you're presenting. But you're exactly right. I mean, but again, I take a position to the circumstances that lays before me. Yeah. I've been to magistrates' court wearing a baseball cap where they've argued that I need to remove that. Now, I've replied back to them saying, no, I'm not.
Not that. No.
But that's not arrogance on my part.
No.
That's just me stating that, why can I not wear what I want to wear?
Exactly.
It's a bit like employment policy. I remember that BA issue with that airline stewardess who wanted to wear the cross
on
her neck, and apparently BAs, you can't wear that, and they lost the case.
Yeah.
It's no indifference. So the fact that somebody who is, let's just say, a pauper, can't afford decent clothes shouldn't prejudice his case.
Yeah.
Or the fact that someone who is extremely wealthy and can afford £5,000 suits shouldn't prejudice his case.
Yeah. I mean,
there's no indifference. Now, that said,
all I'm saying is, Brad, for people that haven't got a suit,
society,
people that haven't got a suit, they can borrow one. For that day, you may not have respect for the court and the process. I understand that, and I empathise with that. And you may hate and detest the people that are in there. But at the end of the day, if you want to get remedy to the situation that you're in, you've got to be duplicitous and you've got to play the game. Because if they're going to take your house away from you, or various other insults that they're going to inflict on you, you've got to play the game. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you've got to perform.
Yeah, because people, again, we're back to a bit of a delay. I'm afraid.
We've. I'm going to try and keep this one a little bit short, Dean.
Yeah.
So we don't bore people too much. Because bear in mind, it's just me and you talking.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to do, actually, I don't know what your idea about this is just to do more chat sort of videos where we bring in a third party or a fourth party as well.
Yeah.
What is your view on doing something like that?
Yeah, well, we mentioned Jamie Bopolot Barnes, and I know that Jamie uses a system called Google Hangouts. So what I'll do is I'll look into getting Google Hangout so we can go on that, and that'll be a 3-way recording system, so we can actually do something that down that road, and hopefully what we discuss will help people in regards to whatever situation they're in.
Yeah. Dean, the other thing as well, one thing, there's a number of things I want to still talk about, but we're going to have to try and not discuss them on this podcast.
Yeah.
Is what about your letter writing and correspondence? I mean, I obviously preach to people to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
However, some of the letters that I've drafted for you have not been so simple.
Yeah.
They've been orchestrated in a way for not only... Actually, they've been orchestrated in a way just to get disclosure.
Yeah.
But they're actually very tactical and very, what did I say, complex. But would you agree that most, what you've learned in some of the cases that I've been assisting you on, how would you best describe it as a let's use Carl Lentz's term, as a man?
Yeah. What's been interesting is the letters that you've done for me, and some of them you've done sort of verbatim over the phone, where I've written down, is that clearly it's shown by the way that you phrase and you construct stuff. You've been immersed in legal land, Bradford. It clearly shows that, When I compare it to what I've written, even though I write in a very business-like, matter-of-fact fashion, I still leave holes left, right, and centre for the other side to wriggle out of. Whereas you firmly put the burden of disclosure on the other side. Obviously, this is in relation to me being in a defensive position, where they have to give disclosure for them to address the issue. Because if they don't address the issue, that speaks just as loudly as if they don't disclose in the first place. So they're very cleverly constructed to back them into a corner, but in a very respectful but a very concise way, which is effective.
And Dean, listen, one thing, and hopefully you vouch for this. Do I ever quote any case law?
No, never. And that's always the danger, Brad. Even though I've said it earlier in the recording, please everyone go on to Bailey and read court cases, and then, as you said, read the determination of the presiding judge, which is a great educational tool. And obviously, any phrases or text that's there, always plagiarise and rip them off. The one thing people have got to realise, and the biggest danger, and again, in all the years of research that I've done, and that it must be the tens and tens of thousands of hours of podcasts and talk shows that I've listened to, the one thing that jumps out at me is the law is an opinion. And it happens to be the opinion of who's in control of that paperwork underneath that gun underneath all that paperwork. So it is down to opinion, because from one day to the next, on the identical cases, you will get a completely different opinion and a completely different summation of that case. And what you do, you don't quote law.
Yeah, that's that county. That's at county court level mainly.
Yeah.
If you're on the civil.
Yeah.
And magistrates if you're on criminal. But what the reason why I don't mention case law is so you do not appear too clever too early on.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And this is what I try to impart: is you think you're writing a really fucking great letter, which is looks pretty awesome, and I look at it, I think, what the fuck is all that?
Yeah.
But you expose cards too early on, where you can be as simple as possible by asking for early disclosure. But we don't just say, okay, can I have full disclosure and that's it. Yeah. I mean, in criminal, that's basically what we do. Yeah. But in civil, you don't do that.
No.
You basically do the sort of letters that I did to you. And to be honest, Dean, to be perfectly frank, the letters that we've done, not complex, are they?
No, they haven't been complex at all.
But it pushes them down an avenue. I mean, for example, I thought it was really funny that we did a CPR request, a CPR Part 18 request.
That's
on
right.
One of your cases.
That's right.
They said, we don't feel we need to reply, but we will reply.
Yeah.
And then they replied.
That's right. Exactly.
And then they started using words of knowingly and all that sort of stuff, which I thought was pretty cool. The reason why I thought that's pretty cool is that they're basically saying we don't really know.
Exactly. And this is the interesting thing, Brad, is again, as you referred to, if you get picked up by the police, shut your mouth. Don't talk.
Yeah, exactly.
But obviously on the civil side of things, because I'm trying to resolve an issue with regards to an issue a land issue I've got, I need the other side to disclose to me what their issue is and give a fuller explanation. Well, you saw by their response via their lawyers, they really didn't need to respond to the Part 18 request. And if anyone wants to Google that, it's a very effective tool. It's called a Part 18 request, everybody. So if you just Google it, it will tell you. And basically, it's a tool to be used.
There's also a Part 54 request.
That's right. Is there also 34 as well, Brad? It's 54 and 34, isn't it?
I don't know about 34.
Yeah. But it's an amazing tool because it can be used to get various different admissions prior to the whole thing going to court.
On that point, just so people are aware, if they don't comply with a CPR Part 18 request, and it's part of the subject matter of the case, you can then get an adjournment and an order by the court that they comply with that information. Now, if they do comply with that on said hearing day,
Yeah.
You then order or request or require
Yeah.
an immediate adjournment so you can seek legal advice. So never, upon disclosure on the day, accept it as disclosure. You basically walk away saying, I need an adjournment now. I've had this disclosure. If they do disclose on that day, to take due care and consideration and legal advice to not prejudice myself.
Yeah.
So it's very important you do that, because I've seen that happen where judges and counsel for the other side have said, been handed it this morning.
Yeah.
That's not good enough. So you make sure you walk away from that situation.
Exactly.
You need to make sure you do that, because otherwise that could definitely prejudice your case, because there could be, on the back of that disclosure, further disclosure which you need to think about.
Yeah.
And the reasoning you always use, if you're a litigating person, I need to walk away and take legal advice. Now, assuming you don't take legal advice or do take legal advice is irrelevant. But the fact is, you're entitled to legal advice. It's a bit like criminal.
Yeah.
They always say you're entitled to a lawyer at any time or to stop matters. It's exactly the same in the courts.
Could be an ambush,
and as
Brad.
long as you make the courts aware of that, they should. They ought to stop proceedings on your request or your requirement, whatever you want to use, what word you want to use. They should stop proceedings. And even if disclosure doesn't reveal anything, what the benefit you do have, if you do have disclosure, is what they disclosed in the hearing. So, for example, if they said this, they said that, they said this, and then they present this, is it gives you the ability to reflect on what their angle is.
Yeah.
So you stop proceedings on the fact of late disclosure and that you need to go and get legal advice. So it's really, really, really important that you follow that process, especially if you want to succeed. Now, it could be the disclosure goes in your favour, but I would aver that if you keep your mouth shut, you basically stick to the same position of basic, going back into court again, because you're going to have more information.
Yeah.
I can't say enough. I mean, I know you say I fucking talk too much about disclosure, Dean.
No, not at all.
It's a bit like if you knew the lottery numbers, you'll be playing them, wouldn't you?
But Brad, if I can just slightly, I know we've got to wrap the recording up, but if I can just slightly tie up a loose end that we mentioned earlier, people's default position is to run their mouths off when they're up against authority. If we remember how we are as adults, when we were naughty at school and we were pulled into the headmaster's room and there was you and the offending party, or you were the offending party, the normal rule book, the playbook, is they just get you to talk. They start you to talk, they separate you, they get you to talk to give a version of events, and then they compare a version of events. So from small children, we feel honour bound to give all this verbal, because it's impressed on us from a very young age. Would you agree with that, Brad?
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, what the thing is, right, we've either got to defend ourselves in honesty or lie.
Yeah.
That's basically it. There's a liar, there's a person, but there's also interpretation. So, for example, I could be a fucking complete idiot.
Yeah.
And honestly, this is what I see in magistrates' court quite a lot. I believe I'm going to court because I'm guilty.
Yeah.
But technically, what are you guilty of?
Yeah.
Now, it's a bit like I'm just trying to think of an example.
What did that judge? Sorry, Brad. What did that judge say to you about guilt? Remember that, where he completely switched it round. You just let the people know what that judge said to you.
Oh, where he said, if I agree with you, the system.
No.
Is that the one where
you're presumed guilty, and he gave you that one? Remember?
Oh no.
The judge said.
Okay, fine. Yeah. Okay. Yes. This was a civil case. Actually, funny enough, in a jurisdiction of one of your family members, who's a magistrate.
Yeah.
he said to me, I said, how can I prove what I cannot disprove? And he said, well, you need to prove to me that what they're saying is incorrect. And I basically repeated that. I said, how circular is that?
Yeah.
He said, well, they're not here just for fun. That's what he said.
Yeah.
That's what he said to me. I said, well, surely they've got to prove their case. How can I disprove something that I cannot prove?
Exactly.
How ridiculous is that?
But these people...
Anyway,
these people...
They won the case on that hearing.
Yeah.
And I just went to... I went to appeal and won the appeal.
But these people, though, Brad, that's the way that they conduct...
Video.
Yeah, sorry, we're in delay again, sorry. That's the way they conduct their business.
Let's go back to my original... Sorry, Dean, there's a big delay on this.
Yeah, it's got worse. It's got worse.
Recording my end.
Yeah.
But it goes back to my original video.
Yeah.
Is basically the... It's that... Okay, listen, I've got a bit of legal knowledge here.
Yeah.
Through the court system. And I try not to be in the county court too often, yeah. But, you know, is that... Imagine other people in that circumstances... They're going to be scratching their head thinking, shit, I'm in a fucking pickle here. But they shouldn't think like that.
Yeah.
They should think, well, they're making the claim. Let them prove their claim. The judge specifically said, and I've got the transcript because I ordered it for the sake of ordering it for fun, is he specifically says, I don't see it like that, or something like that. I can't remember. It was like, I don't know, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
He specifically said that. He said, well, I don't see it like that.
Unbelievable.
How absurd.
Unbelievable.
And it's a bit like criminal prosecution, beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, that doesn't apply no more, really, to be fair, especially at magistrates' court.
Yeah.
And in civil courts, it's balance of probabilities and weight. I actually, funny enough, I said to a county court judge, I've said it a number of times, to be fair, but I said, well, how did you weigh that argument? Well, we've got a scale. I said, well, where's the scale?
Yeah.
And he said, don't be ridiculous. We don't have scales. Now, I wasn't referring to weighing scales.
Yeah.
I was just saying, where you know, how is it approached? He said, we use our discretion. That's what he said.
Yeah. Yeah. Completely arbitrary.
And I think that's a big issue as well. They, you know, a county court rule, they use the... Yes, oh, exactly right. It's too arbitrary.
Completely. Brad, I know we got a bit of a delay, but if I can just say this to give people a bit of a background, because you've got a business background and I've got a business background. And for those that don't have a business background, you've got to remember that that building that's called a court has got to be paid for that day. Now, obviously, the men and women that trade under the name under Her Majesty's Court Service, they're all broken up into little districts and little jurisdictions. Now, at the end of the day, there's money in and there's money out. So it wouldn't be a big stretch of the imagination to show that there's got to be 90% of income, or maybe more, I'm sure it's more, has got to come in their way and not go outwards. So completely by the way that the system is set up, it is arbitrary, but it's arbitrary in favour of the courts, the people in the building. Now, we can go down the road that these are public buildings. We own them. And the reason we own them is we are forced to pay for these by our local taxes or by our regional taxes. So we do own those buildings, but those buildings are protected and controlled by a private police force, you know, G4S or Securitas, whoever they are. And if we go against, or we try to argue against what's happening inside that court, we're asked to leave summarily. Now, the one thing we've got to do is we've got to be a wolf in sheep's clothing. We know the system's rigged. We know the system is wrong. We know it's not about justice. It's about just us. And that's them, just us. You know, we've got to know what we're dealing with. You know, if it walks like a duck and it, you know, and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. Yeah? And that's the way that we've got to see it. So we've got to go in, if we are dragged into a court scenario, with our eyes wide open. But when we go into court, and I've seen people do this, because obviously it's a very stressful situation, where people start saying to court officials, I know what you're doing, this is a public building, you're this, you're that, you're the other. I'm sure you've witnessed this, Brad, over the years. I've witnessed it. And all you're doing is you're just giving a really, really big red flag to those court staff that, hold on a minute, we've got one of those in at the moment. It's far more effective when you get into court to ask...
Stop there, Dean. Stop. 1 second. There's a couple of things before you run on too much.
Yeah.
Going back to court costs, where they're awarded against you, I hope he doesn't mind, but okay, let's just say this then. A gentleman called Tony, who I gave you his number for earlier, said to me, the judge said to the prosecutor, well, who's going to pay for the costs for today?
Yeah.
And the prosecutor said, I'm not going to pay them.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. And this guy, who was acting in very good faith, had actually no liability whatsoever. The judge basically tried to tell this guy, well, if he's not going to pay them, you need to pay them. Yeah. Who's going to pay for today's cost?
Yeah.
And rightly so, he argued the point, well, it's got fuck all to do with me.
Well,
although he obviously didn't use those explicit terms. But basically, using your language there, is the judge was looking to say, well, who's going to pay for it?
Yeah. Who's going to carry the can?
And the hearing was a complete nut.
Yeah, exactly. But didn't this happen at Helen's trial when Fabrice was assisting her, where she got £900 cost due to abuse of process? And then Helen said then it was an argument on whose budget those costs were going to be attached to. At the end of the day, what we've got to realise is that, looking at the Wizard of Oz, it was a very, very tiny little man behind a curtain operating a giant-sized remote-controlled monster. And this is very much the same scenario. Is that, again, Brad, I've seen people let themselves down so badly by going into court. Obviously, the adrenaline is coursing through their veins. It is a stressful situation. It is designed to be stressful. It's designed to put you on the back foot. And as I mentioned in our previous recording about the architecture, why the court is designed that way, it's designed to make you feel uncomfortable. It's done that way for a reason. You've got to remember that a lot of these designs for courts are medieval, where slavery was accepted, serfdom was accepted. You had indentured slaves. It hasn't changed. The whole legal system is on a 17th century template. And that's, sorry, Brad, I've gone into one. Do you agree with that, or am I talking nonsense?
No. To be honest, this is where I agree with people who research law, like old law.
Yeah.
In as much as that it's applicable, but only applicable if they see it's applicable.
Yeah.
Now, even though it hasn't been repealed in law, they don't want to hear it.
No.
But only if they want to hear it, and this is why I stick to the upper courts. The reason being, the process is a lot quicker.
Yeah.
So if I'm in the High Court straight away, I can then go to the appeals court very quickly. And then you start dealing in law, case law, which I presented quite a few times. And I remember one case. Actually, it was only 2 weeks ago. In that we debated case law for, it must have been for 3 hours.
Whoa.
And then the judge said, look, I cannot give an opinion today. I'm going to put it in writing. Now, I'm more than happy with that.
Yep.
And in fact, in some respects, I would have wished that in the first place.
Yeah.
And that's where case law happens. Now, if you go to court and say, let's just say, for example, at magistrates level, council tax is not legal, has no standing, whatever, which I know is a big subject for a lot of people.
Of course it is.
At magistrates court, they're not going to have a clue what the hell you're on about.
No.
The clerk's not going to help the magistrate out in terms of case law. You've probably gone in there and just verbalised it instead of actually putting a couple of bit of case law together. But the foundation needs to be that basic paperwork in place so that you can say, well, I provided this, they ignored it and entered judgment, and I'm appealing against that.
Yeah.
Errors in law. Very simple.
Yeah, exactly. But people don't realise, Brad, when you're dealing, maybe in the next recording we can go into dealing with councils as corporations and as ongoing businesses for profit, to give people the insight into how the corporate structure works. And the corporate structure is all about quid pro quo. And again, as I said, referring to parking tickets, as part of civil disobedience, if everyone appeals them, the system will collapse. Because there'll be no money in it for them because of the back end of the companies they use, because they use contractors, Capita and all these various other people that they've now subcontracted out. If their workload goes from, as I said, 9% on parking tickets and exceeds, say, 15%, that's all it needs to tip the whole thing out of kilter. Because then that £60 ticket will be costing them £55 to administer. But, if people are going to do that, they have to use a proper argument. They can't just appeal for the sake of appealing. And this leads on to council tax. Someone said to me, an American guru that I spoke to many years ago, I won't give his name because no one would have heard of him, but he's very much a clever guy, and he's done a lot of work in the IRS, the American taxation system, which they readily admit the American taxation system makes the English taxation system look fairly straightforward. And we all know the English taxation system is just completely arbitrary anyway. And he said to me, Dean...
Is that true, though? Because I remember that Aaron Russo video that he did, Freedom to Fascism, which I thought was a great video.
Great video.
And he didn't need to do that. He was a millionaire anyway.
Yeah.
And was paying his taxes where he brought in 2 wheelbarrows full of paperwork.
That's right, yeah.
That was debated by a small number of politicians. What do you call them? What are they called?
What, by the enforcement agents?
I say politicians is the wrong word.
Senators.
No. Where they sign. What is it?
Senators.
Senators, that's the word I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Senators. A small number of senators over a Christmas period. And then basically, sorry, I'm getting myself confused now, actually, Dean, sorry, I apologise. Yeah. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm listening, yeah. It's just a delay, just coping with the delay.
Okay, fine. Yeah, so when the tax code come in, it was signed off. No, this is not the tax code. I'm thinking about the Federal Reserve. Sorry, I apologise.
Yeah.
But the tax code is so huge, but it was debated for hours, if not just a couple of days. And he argued in his video, Freedom to Fascism, that could quite possibly take many weeks to just read, and people voted in favour of it.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing as well, you think about, ignoring that issue, the fact that people read it, let's just assume they did, is would you as a citizen, say, for example, read the entire tax code?
Be impossible, Brad.
And understand it?
Be impossible.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I wouldn't be able to do it.
But it's...
And I've been in the court system for years.
It's designed that way. But this guru said to me, Dean, you can't eat an elephant whole but you can eat an elephant one bite at a time. And that resonated with me. If you're going to tackle council tax, and this is, you know, if you're going to, don't, as you said, go into county court and say I'm not paying it because it's not lawful, because you're going to lose. You're going to lose because, of course, they all rely on the business directly from the local authorities, obviously, to process their alleged warrants at the time. Maybe you can take an approach on it on the fact that there's no contract there in the first place, and please show me where the contract is that I've got to perform and pay this money. Well, it's because you're in the bar.
You know what I've going on. You know what I've going on in that at the moment. So just.
Yeah, but you know, the other issue is, Brad, is you can say, well, you're in the borough of Kensington. Let's use Kensington for argument. Well, hold on a minute. Just because I'm in the borough of Kensington, show me the evidence why I have to pay your tax. If you can show me the evidence and facts, I'll pay it. And all they can show is writing on a piece of paper. Well, how does that writing on a piece of paper apply to you? But as far as they're concerned, the fact that writing was on a piece of paper, as Lysander Spooner has said, and again Mark Stevens with the No State Project, is that is the premise of their map of the world. The fact that these men and women...
I do, on that point...
Yep.
On that point, I do highly recommend people listen to Lysander Spooner's audio on YouTube.
Yeah.
It will give you good insight. And also, there's somebody that's done an audio on Mark Stevens's book, Adventures in Legal Land, on YouTube as well. Just Google it. It'll come up very quickly. It's fantastic to listen to.
Yeah, I know the guy. It's a guy.
Please, people...
Yeah, it's a guy called Jason Johansson, a really nice fella. I've spoken to him a few times. He's based in the Midwest, and he took time aside out of his own time, and he broke it up into bits and put it onto YouTube. So you don't even need to invest in Mark's book, but it'd be nice if you did, because Mark's stuff has got a lot of shall we say food for thought, Brad?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, to be fair, as I said to you, it's far too clean and it won't stand up in court. No. That's the only problem.
No, it won't.
What he does is prevention to get to court.
Yes.
And I respect him for that. And I think he accepts that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good argument to place. The problem is when it gets to court, if you walk in with that argument, I think you're going to struggle.
Well, especially
I'm trying to be delicate there because I really appreciate Mark, because I think out of many people, there's a couple people on YouTube that I've learned from, and he's definitely
one of them. Yeah, definitely.
So I've got a lot of respect for the guy, but I would not implore people to follow the practice in the whole, especially at court, because you're going to struggle. And even if Mark Stevens himself was in court, I don't think he could successfully present his argument at a court. Maybe, I'm not saying this is with certainty, he may be able to put enough mud against the prosecution to win on appeal on technicality.
Well, this is how Helen. This is how Helen won her case. Helen and Fabrice. They used the Mark Stevens approach. Helen was allegedly went 5 or 6 mile an hour over the speeding limit, and the whole premise was, well, please show me that your law applies. And of course, they got bounced around.
She wore them down, though.
Wore them down. Was it 7 or 8 hearings in the end, Brad? And then eventually that turned into an abusive process, and that's how they won. At the end of the day, if you're going to make yourself into a square peg, so you don't fit in their round hole. You're still within the remit of you're still on the legal side, the arbitrary legal side, because you're asking for facts and evidence. Well, they can't supply those facts and evidence, clearly. So it's a bit of a paradigm buster for most people. They may not understand what I'm saying, but let me ask everyone this question. I know we've got to end the recording, Brad, but if I can break it down for people, I belong to a golf club, and the golf club I belong to has rules and regulations. As far as I'm concerned, Brad, you've got to follow my golf club's rules. Now, if I say to you, Brad, you've broken the rules of my golf club, the first thing you're going to say to me, well, Dean, I've never been to your golf club. I said, yes, you have, Brad. We've got you're controlled by our rules. Well, you're going to say, well, show me where I've signed up to your rules of your golf club. And that's the premise. Just because you're within a...
That's a good example.
Yeah, just because you're within a geographic location called the British Isles or the UK or whatever, where does that come from? They will tell you, the psychopaths, the men and women that run the law construct, it comes from the earth. It's because you're on that piece of land. Well, where's the evidence? There is no evidence. It's just conjecture.
I think that's what I learned from...
Yeah.
That's what I learned from Mark is question everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Question everything. And going back to my children, they question me on everything. Dad,
why?
Yeah. They do. They really do. They listen in the background on my phone calls, and I'm on the phone so many hours of the day. It's just not even funny.
Yeah, it's not even funny.
They say, why does that person just say that? Or why is this and why is that?
Why is that?
Now, which is great, really, because they've actually brought me information which I never would have known as well, and said, Dad, but my teacher said this to me today.
Yeah.
I don't think it's right. And I asked the question, and the teacher actually told them to stop interfering in the classroom. That's what he said.
Yeah.
One of the teachers, that is.
Yeah.
But all they were doing was asking a question. And I said to one of my daughters, I said, don't worry about that. I said, just, you did the right thing.
Yeah.
You asked a question because you didn't understand it. And to be fair, the question was perfectly valid. If people... I mean, obviously, we don't want fucking the entire society roaming around the world asking questions of everybody about everything, because it will be a shit society to live in.
Yeah.
But to ask a question about, like, for example, I don't want to talk about council tax on perfectly honest, but let's just say council tax. But to say, well, how did that liability come due? I mean, I've got a lot of experience in council tax.
Yeah.
And I've heard what the officials on behalf of the council tax have said, and let's just be fair to say they're very misleading.
Yeah, very misleading. I wonder why.
But one simple question would be: is where does my liability or obligation derive from?
Yeah. Please show me the evidence.
I recall on one court hearing where the council official said to the other party in his affidavit, well, he didn't call it an affidavit, he read out a statement, and I saw it said an affidavit, and he said in the statement that he read out, the property is liable for council tax. Now, okay, fine. Let's assume that's the case, yeah?
Yeah.
Does that mean then the council have to pay council tax on all vacant properties in the UK?
It's nonsense.
Now, also another argument could be, if you look at unfairness, is it the property or the person liable? They're saying the property is liable. Okay, fine. We'll call the property to court then. Get the property there to be placed there. Now, the same has to be said. Let's just say Dean Kirby owned a house. Well, actually, you do own other properties in London. Are you paying the council tax on that property, Dean?
No, because
or does the tenant pay
the tenant pays.
Yeah, okay, well there you go. So, but it is verbal. It is verbal. I can't even say it's a witness statement because he didn't go on the stand. But in his verbal dialogue, he said the property was liable. But yet, okay, fine. So how does the freeholder of the property become liable when he's not the tenant? That sort of stuff. You just kind of work your way into it. You just gotta. I mean, I hate talking about the council tax because I know it's a big subject, but you got to look at it logically, right? He's saying the property is liable for council tax, and that yet the property cannot speak.
No, it's a nonsense.
And then you look at the local authority and say, okay, fine. Do you pay council tax on all your vacant properties? And then you've also got people, not landlords, but tenants being taken to court for council tax.
Yeah.
So you can't have your cake and fucking eat it. The problem is they do have their cake and eat it, where they're willing to just latch on. People call it adhesion, which is perfectly correct.
Yeah.
To anybody that they can say, okay, you owe us this.
Yeah.
I remember one hearing, specifically regards to council tax, actually, where it was a good case, actually. I'm going to redact it slightly because one of the angles is not peculiar and improper, but anyway, it worked. But where the person was only a tenant for a month, but the magistrate put a liability order against that person for the entire year, even though the evidence was that he was only there for a month.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and going back to even whether or not council tax is legitimate or not, I mean, I don't know. I've got my opinion. I'm not willing to share that here.
Yeah.
But how can that even possibly be proper? So someone who's been an occupant for a month,
yeah,
never met the council official ever. They knocked on the door of the house and said, "Who lives here?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Let's just say Peter Smith, for example." And but that wasn't the person that was being charged with a council tax bill. He then goes to the summons hearing and says, "I've been a tenant there for a month." It was like probably about 3 weeks into his tenancy.
Yeah.
And the judge listened. The judge listened to it. I wasn't there at the hearing.
Yeah.
I'm only going on what he told me. And no, it's not a judge, a magistrate. Sorry.
Yeah.
Listened to it and said, "Okay, well, here he's saying we're going to give you a liability order for XXX, which amounted to the 12 months."
It's arbitrary, Brad. It's completely arbitrary. You know, people have got.
It's appalling.
It's appalling. People have got to realise that their local authority is in the extension arm of central government, and the central government is the Houses of Parliament that's full of the 650 killers, thieves, and liars. You know that is the extension. They are the tentacles of that place called Parliament, and at the end of the day, we have to pay, whether we like it or not, the local taxes to the local feudal lord, and the local feudal lord is the corporation that runs your local authority. Now, that's a couple of statements I've just made. If you go to my local council and you go into the council offices, on the staff board, at the clipboard at the back of the office, you will see the name of the company that supplies the staff for the council. So like someone like Capita. So the council staff that are in the council offices are being supplied for by one of these facilities management companies. So the council person you think you're speaking to is not directly employed by the council. So it's all this what I call the Russian dole. It's the dole within a dole within a dole within a dole. But in relation to the council tax, if you do go down that road, I would urge people to be tactical. Firstly, I would say, because you're going to get people coming on your door, do you really want to expose your children to all that stress? Secondly, is your partner with you on this? You need to be solid with regard to this. And thirdly, you know, have you got the legal knowledge? Have you got the background to put a proper valid argument across why you're not paying council tax? And fourthly, if there is such a thing as fourthly, are you directly employed? If you're directly employed, they will garnish your wages. They will go directly behind your back to your employer, and they will take your money at source directly from your employer. Because believe it or not, there's a £7,000 to £9,000 fine for an employer that doesn't comply with a local authority edict. So you've got to be tactical. If you are going to do this, you cannot go into it just, you know, balls to the wall. That is not the way to go about it. If you're going to pick your fight with a giant, which is what they are, you need to tactically know where you stand. And I know lots of people that have come a cropper, and you know them, Brad. You know of them, where they've, on principle, they've tried to defend themselves against the system, and the system has cost them their families, and the system has cost them the roof over their head. So I would urge people to be tactical in the way that they go about things. I'm not telling them not to do it. All I'm telling
I'm definitely very much for, to be honest, system compliance. To be fair,
yeah.
It guts me a little bit, but the problem is if you go against the system, and is unless you really understand how to challenge it to the top. Because when you get to the top, it exposes everything, and I assure you, they will not let you get to the top.
Exactly.
They won't. I mean, a court case which I lost. Actually, this is my own case. Where I took a bailiff company to court. I lost it. And took it to county court. Sorry. I was in county court initially. And then I went to appeals court, a circuit judge. Lost again. Then went to appeals court, and then the bailiff company settled with me. Literally just out the blue. The reason why they did not want that case tested,
of course not,
at the High Court.
They don't want they don't want the footprint there, Brad. I
completely out of the blue.
Exactly. Just so
completely out of the blue, they settled, and I regret it in some respects, and I regret it on the basis that I knew I was right in my argument that I was putting forward. But unfortunately, the sum they put forward in settlement was reasonable. And it wasn't huge, thousands of pounds. But it was a very decent sum. In recompense for what I was alleging in the first place.
For what you suffered.
But that took a year. No, it took more than a year. It took about a year and a half.
Because to get
to that stage. So they know already that.
Sorry, Brad. Sorry, the delay's it. Because technically, a bailiff knocks on your door. You answer the door, and he says you owe 500 quid, and you say sorry, I'm not paying it, and you shut the door. The bailiff is then meant to walk away. Anything over and above that is then you start to suffer various different, or if I use the legal term, torts. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, to an element, yeah. I mean, my view on bailiffs anyway, is pretty perverse, and I don't really want to be airing that.
Yeah.
To be honest, because the way I see them is that they're a non-entity. To be honest,
Yeah.
and I don't want people going down that route of explaining what I do with bailiffs.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I just sue them all.
Yeah, exactly.
That's basically
exactly. That's basically it, Brad. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
If they, as soon as they enter your property, you ask them to leave, and they don't leave, it's aggravated trespass.
Yeah.
And then I go down the route of just recording them, and then I just tell people just to smile and be polite, and don't let them in.
Just as an aside, just as an aside, Brad, just so people realise what's going on, because I know a lot about the American system. The American system they have a court electronic system called PACER, and PACER is the electronic system for filing. So you can go into PACER at any time when you've got an account and see the court cases that the relevant person you're doing the check on he's got going. Now, I've spoken to lots of people in America that have actually done work and got some fairly landmark rulings with regards of issues that they've had with, there's to be sheriffs, these are blokes with guns that knock on your door to collect debts. And surprise, surprise, when you go to PACER, they're not listed. Funny that.
Mm.
And there's a reason.
What's the reason?
Well, clearly they don't want there to be the footprint. Clearly they don't want other people to realise that, hold on a minute, beyond them knocking on your door asking for payment, that they are then starting to encroach and cause other issues. Stress, duress, coercion, etc., etc., etc. Clearly, and again, I think in our next one thing I'm keen for people to learn about, which is something that I've looked into quite greatly for our next recording, is about public policy. People have got to realise that public policy is massive when it comes to the courts, and public policy is derived from, guess who? The politicians. And that is something that I like to discuss with you, Brad. And what I've come across is that public policy, and we can expand from council tax to mortgages to bank loans to all the various other things that people may come across, even with regards to tax debts. Public policy comes into play extremely, is an extremely important factor. And how public policy is used and implemented, because I know you've hit up against a few public policy issues, and you've been told by judges that if I were to the effect that if I let you get away with this, fingers in the air, it'd be chaos. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, yeah. I can't remember the precise words. Again, a county court judge used. He said to me, if I were to rule in your favour, the system would be in chaos. That's what he said to me.
Yeah.
And that was at the court that's near Marylebone. I can't remember. Park
Royal?
Park Place?
Park Place, right.
Park Place, is it? Park Place?
Yeah, Park Place, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Park Place, whatever. Dean, let's leave it there on this one.
Yeah.
And then let's do